Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we are about to start. So, first things first, for live captions and translations, please scan the QR code that is showing here somewhere, I think right here on the screen. And also, we're going to do Q&As in the very end of the workshop. So, please send all the questions you might have through the QR code that is going to appear very soon, and also through a link that we're going to drop in the chat. So during the workshop, we're also going to run 2 live challenges for an exclusive accessory. And don't forget to answer the poll in the chat with the QR code when it appears. And as a reminder, all the rewards will be sent out only after Inspire 2026 around August. So keep an eye on that. And right now, I'll hand it off to GlibDuke to talk about introduction to AI powered programming. Welcome, Glib.
Thank you, Batata Frita. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. First of all, make sure you get those items because they are really cute. So make sure to interact with all of the workshops and answer the questions as well. I did interact yesterday. It was Coder Z's workshop. It was pretty good. If you guys, I don't know if you guys saw that one, but make sure you get the items. They're really cute. So welcome, I guess. Welcome to my workshop. This is Intro to AI Powered Programming. This is a more beginner focused workshop, but even if you're like an advanced programmer, I'm hopefully, while you're watching, you still be able to walk away with something or like learn something new. That's my goal here. If you can leave this live stream today with at least one new thing that you learned, that's good. That's awesome. So here's a little bit about me. This is me. Hello, I'm Glib. I am 21 years old. I am from Brazil. I've been making games on Roblox for 6 years. So I've been making games and programming before AI was a thing. So I actually know how to code, just so you don't think I'm a LARP. No, I've been out there. I'm not one of those guys who joined the platform and was like, computer, please make me rich, make me no mistakes. Yeah, nope. I was out there, sleepless nights of coding, doing a lot of things. These are like a few games that I've made before. You may have seen them, you may have not. It doesn't matter if you haven't seen them, but if you have, that's it. If you notice the first one there, Small Close Call, that was an Inspire 2024 submission, and we won a category in that. So, how many of you are actually participating in the Inspire Challenge this year? Are you? Because you guys should. Because if you haven't seen, the prize is a fully paid for trip to RDC, and I'm gonna be at RDC. So if you're gonna be there as well, feel free to walk up to me, talk to me there. But anyway, let me stop yapping and let's get to the agenda of the workshop. So these are the topics that we're going to be talking about today that I thought would be appropriate for a beginner-focused workshop, which are abstraction, plugins, skills, object-oriented prompting, which is a fun little thing that you're going to see soon enough, and then a quick demo and a Q&A. So before we jump into the actual juice or the actual knowledge of all of this, I need to introduce you to a concept that is widely known in computer science, but maybe some of you haven't heard of it before, or you might not be familiar with it, and that is abstraction. How many people in chat have heard of abstraction before? I don't know. Comment down below. But what is abstraction? Essentially, abstraction means using something really powerful without really knowing what's happening underneath or what's going on in there, right? So, as an example, you drive a car, but you don't actually understand how the engine works, right? You're not a mechanic, you haven't built the car. And yet, you or your parents or someone you know can still drive the car without knowing what's going on, right? Or even easier for you to understand, like if you flip a light switch in your house, do you understand the power grid of your house or like how it's wired up or how everything works? You don't. And that's the point. You don't need to understand it to use it. And programming is essentially just layers of this. And they have been stacked for like 80 years, pretty much. That is what programming is. And so There you go. Computers, they only speak binary. They deep down, they only understand computer language or machine language. And what is computer language? You might be asking yourself right now. Essentially, if you've watched Matrix or any like hacker things or anything that's like programming related in entertainment or media overall, you might have seen those like cool looking screens like that one, the green one, which is just like a bunch of zeros and ones and zeros and ones, and it's like binary. And you see them, they look cool, but they make no sense to you. And that's the real language of the machine. Why? Because when computers were first built, we didn't really have keyboards. We didn't really have like screens or mouses. We didn't have anything, pretty much. We had people pulling levers and running equations and doing math. As you can see in the image here, that guy is using one of the very few computers that ever existed out there. You don't see like a keyboard and a mouse, and he's definitely not playing Roblox here. He's just like some guy pulling some levers and doing math. So here's another example, which if you have taken computer science at some point, computer science classes, you might be familiar with. But if you're not, you've never seen this before. But essentially, 5 plus 5 in binary. So 5 is represented by 101 in binary. And so another 5 is 101. And plus isn't a number, it's just the way it's wired up. So you do 101 plus 101 equals 1010. And that 1010 is essentially 10 in binary. So you just did 5 plus 5 the long way around, basically. But why am I telling you this? Chances are most of you have added a number on your computer and you never had to think about what 5 means in binary, right? You just press 5 and then plus and then 5 and it gives you the result. And so the thing is, abstraction, with abstraction, at some point, someone thought, what if instead of inputting 101 into the machine, we had a lever, and that lever, whoops, that lever was labeled 5. And when you pull that lever, it just sends 101 for you. You don't need to type 101, you just pull the lever called 5. And there you go. From that moment on, nobody pulling the 5 lever really needed to know what 5 means in computer language. That 5 is equal to 101 in binary. They just needed to know that it meant 5. Why am I telling you all this? Pretty much. Fast forward a few decades, as I said, you type 5 plus 5 in your keyboard, even in a browser, and you can just see the answer. You don't need to know any of that. You don't need to know how your like your keyboard is wired to your computer, how it all shows up on the screen, how the answer even comes to you from the internet. Like you just type in on Google and Google tells you the answer. You don't need to know any of that. You just type it and see the answer. And so in that one moment, you just enjoyed like 80 years of computer abstraction, pretty much. That's what you enjoyed right there without even realizing. And a fun personal story that I have with this is that I actually experienced like a downgrade in abstraction when I went to university because I learned to code on Roblox, right? I learned how to code with Lua, which is dynamically typed. You might not know what that means, but it just basically means that you don't have to declare whether you're storing a number, a piece of text, or a group of things, whatever. You just call it a variable, you just call it like a little box and move on, and you can put anything in it. However, at university, they taught us C. Now, in C, it is a lot harder. You have to specify everything. At some point, you're even managing like memory that your code takes up, and like one mistake could crash your entire computer. I had already been a programmer for years, but because I started at a higher level of abstraction, I had never needed to know like what a pointer was, what a float was to make a game. Someone had already abstracted all of that away from me, is essentially what I'm telling you. And I could still make games without knowing what that meant. And finally, why am I telling you all this? Last year, if you were here for Inspire 25, I did another workshop, and it was called Intro to Programming, where we live coded a very basic Steal a character system, kind of like Steal a brain rot. And I spent like a large portion of that workshop introducing you to what were variables, what were functions, what were booleans, what were conditionals, and then we assembled that system out of those things, right? And I'm not saying that knowledge is not useful anymore. That knowledge is still very useful, and that workshop is still available on the Roblox Learn YouTube channel, and you can watch it through the QR code that should be like there. I don't know, somewhere on the screen. There is a QR code. Um, and I totally recommend you to watch that if you want to deep dive into programming, or if you want to like further understand how everything works behind it. But you don't necessarily need that knowledge nowadays anymore to reproduce a similarly, or even an exactly a system that works the exact same way. Nowadays, you could just like pull up your favorite AI system, and you could say something like, make me a system with two parts about 40 studs apart on the floor, and they are anchored. And then you can spawn copies of my character on the first part and move them towards the second part. And for every player who joins, you create a base part and you add a proximity prompt inside each spawned character clone. And when a player clicks it, the character stops moving towards the second part and goes to the player's base instead. And if a character isn't claimed, delete it when it reaches the second part. What else? You can add a balance label to each player screen, make the characters cost money. And once they reach a base, they start producing money for that player as well. There you go. That is your prompt. And you just wrote what you wanted. You didn't need to know what a variable was. You didn't need to know what a function was. You didn't need to know what a conditional was. You just wrote what you wanted. And this is not something new. Now, this is where a lot of people get lost and maybe even a little surprised. We've reached the right what you want level of abstraction. And it was actually dreamed about by one of the very first computer scientists. Her name was Grace Hopper. She wrote the first compiler back in 1952, and a compiler is just like the original abstraction layer that turns human readable instructions into the machine language that I talked about earlier. So she also built the first English-like programming language. She was really cool, but her belief was really simple. Her belief was that people should be write programs in something close to English, and the computer should translate it into machine code. And it's funny because when she first showed her compiler to other people in the field, nobody believed her. They insisted that computers could only do math. They insisted like, no, this is not going to go anywhere. Computers aren't meant to do that. Or like, you're abstracting it too much. I don't know. And does that sound familiar? Yes, it does, because that is exactly the same way that people react to AI today. But it's not new. We've had these layers of abstraction like stacking up and up and up for years now. And here is a quote by her. She said, I decided data processors ought to be able to write their programs in English, and the computers would translate them into machine code. And she said that how long ago? 1952. It was so many years ago, so many decades ago, and here we are. You don't strictly need to know how to code anymore to turn an idea into an actual game. So I would encourage you to think about this for a moment. Where do we go from here? I'll let you think about that for a bit, because we essentially started with like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, so we started there, and then we went to a lever that was labeled 5. So now you don't need to know the 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. And then we actually had computer programming languages. So now we went to like ints and floats. And eventually we landed at further abstracted computer programming languages. So you don't even need to know what an int or a float is anymore. You can just store whatever in a variable. And now we are at a point where you just use plain words. And the thought here, or the question is, what is the next level of abstraction? Can you even think about that? Do you guys have any idea what it could be? Like, have we peaked as a society? Or is there even a way of conveying ideas that goes like even further beyond words? Are we eventually just going to be coding with our own brains, just thinking about it? I don't know. You tell me. Do you know? Something to think about. Yeah, but anyway, this trivia time. So after that very philosophical question, you may now scan the QR code. And I don't know how many of you are here just for the item, but I encourage you to stick around, please. Please don't just answer the question and run away. This will be very fun, I promise you. But it is there. Scan it, answer the question. It shouldn't be very hard. It might be a little dumb, um, but I trust you. You can do it. You can answer it. I believe in your potential as a question answerer, if that makes sense. And I'm gonna drink some water. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Okay. Are we good? Can I move on? Yep. The QR code is out there. So, anyway, back to it. Today, finally, now let's get into the content after I yapped to you about all that. Today, I want to show you a few things that let me fully move into AI powered programming and use it to scale entire projects. One quick note first, I'm not going to teach you how to connect your AI to Studio using MCP. I'm not going to teach you how to set up Roho if you want to get serious about it, because there was actually another workshop by Coderzy called AI in Roblox Studio, Best Practices with LLMs and MCP. You can go watch that. I don't think we did set up a QR code for it, but it is on the Roblox Learn YouTube channel. It was absolutely wonderful, and I think it fits really well as an episode 2 of what I'm going to tell you here today, because he did a lot of practical work. He showed how his development work is done. So if you want to go towards a more advanced workshop instead of just the basics here, I highly encourage you to go watch that one. So anyway, I'm gonna give you the more specific tips I use to make my own work as a programmer faster and easier. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about are plugins. Now, what are plugins? Plugins are special abilities or attachments that you can plug into your AI agent, whether that is Claude Code, whether that is Codex, whether that is Gemini. And they essentially make your life easier. And I'm going to show you 3 plugins that are the ones that I use with Claude. But if you don't use Claude, there are equivalents for every plugin. Some of them work across different AIs, but some of them don't. So you have to find equivalents. I'm going to show you my 3 favorites, okay? The first one is Caveman, and this is the plugin that got me looking into plugins in the first place. And basically what Caveman does is it makes the AI write only what is necessary. So it cuts down all the fluff. It cuts down all the being nice to you. It's not going to say that's a wonderful idea, Glib. What would you like to do next? You are so pretty. It's not going to say that anymore. It's just going to make the AI talk like a caveman. So you give it an instruction, it does the instructions, and it gives the result. Easy peasy, no yapping. It's the anti-yap AI plugin, essentially. And this matters for 2 reasons. The first one, you usually have token limits. I'm not sure how many of you have dealt with token limits, but you usually work with AIs at a limit of tokens. So you want to optimize how many tokens you're using, and the more it yaps, the more tokens it's going to burn. So that's the first reason you're going to burn less tokens. And the second reason, which is less technical and just more about a workflow standpoint, is that essentially it's easier for you to read the essential things when it's not fluffing it up, right? So you just save time by not having to read all of that as well. That is Caveman. The second one that I find really, really powerful and helpful is Claude Mem. Now, Claude Mem deals with a different issue that it kind of helps with tokens as well, I guess, but this one is more about context. And a big problem that we have with AI is that when a session gets too long, by the time you've said your 100th thing, it's completely forgotten what you said at the start. I don't know how many of you have ever had that. Type in chat. Have you ever had that issue where you're talking to ChatGPT and you start the chat with a prompt, and then you keep talking to it, and by the time you've been chatting it for a while, it completely forgot the first prompt, right? That is a context issue. And what Claude MAM does, or what any AI context summarizing plugins will do, is that is it essentially summarizes each session after you're done. So it parses through your session, all of your chat, and it makes an AI summary of that session, and it saves that summary in your computer. So next time you boot up the same AI, it's not you're not going to have to re-explain a bunch of things. Essentially, it can just read the AI summaries of the previous sessions, and then a lot of the info that you would have otherwise to explain is already going to be in the summaries. Um, so yeah, it saves you tokens because you don't have to explain to the AI like every single time what you want to do, and it's also just good for like you know keeping them in memory and increasing the context of AI overall. And then finally, we reach the last but not least, because this one is my favorite plugin out of all of them. Superpowers. What this one does is essentially it breaks down the development of any feature into manageable steps. So before you even start building or before you even start coding anything, it's going to ask you the right questions at each step. It's going to make a plan for you to approve before it starts implementing. And then it's going to make an implementation plan for you to approve before it actually starts implementing. And then it's going to dispatch different agents to do everything for you. And after that, it also runs a review on everything that it had made. So it's just a very concise and like established workflow for you. So it basically like catches mistakes for you before they even happen. It closes that gap that you might not have noticed. It explains what it's about to do. And so you can just catch mistakes or even like misunderstandings. Sometimes you type something to the AI and you think you explained that in a good way, but it could have been ambiguous, right? You could have explained it in a way that the AI understood in another way. So this essentially is going to catch that before it even does anything. So you don't have to waste your time correcting it every single time. It's amazing. I love this one. And with these just these three plugins, my experience with AI when like building out MVPs or like building out ideas that I had in the shower, and I'm like, is this actually a good game idea or am I wasting my time here? My experience went from like, okay, this is cool, but I can't actually use it for anything, to actually being like, wow, I might never have to touch a line of code again. But there is more. There is more. Are you still watching? Comment W in the chat if you're still watching. Okay. So we are moving on to skills now. What are skills? And how do they differ between, like, what is the difference between a plugin and a skill? Essentially, the key distinction is that plugins, they add capabilities, skills, they add knowledge. A plugin is like a package that someone else built for you that you can install and give your AI new powers. A skill, on the other hand, is like a recipe that you write and you can teach your AI how to do a recurring task your way every single time without you having to re-explain it. So that's kind of like similar to the Claude mem that I showed about like having to re-explain something. But a skill is something that you can write yourself and feed it to the AI, and it's basically going to learn how to do something. It's going to learn a skill. That's what it's called. It's a skill, right? So you have a skill, you're going to give the AI a skill and write down how to do it. So without them, you have to repeat yourself constantly. No, like if you have a way that you like your game structured, like no, put the services in service script service, not workspace, please. The remote events have to go in replicated storage. Don't throw them around, and you have to keep correcting it every session. A skill is just going to capture that all at once. So if you have a very specific way that you like to organize your Roblox projects, even for like maintainability, so you know where everything is, you can make a skill that says like, okay, you should put every service in a services folder in the server, a services folder in the client, a client and server versions of each service. Remote events should be stored in replicated storage. The UI should be referenced from this string UI, and you can write all of that down as a skill. Or for even better results, I would highly encourage you to just like talk to an AI and have it write the skill for you. Have it ask you questions, and then like um, by you answering those questions, explaining it, it can probably write a better defined skill file for yourself. Um, so I have a skill called Roblox game architecture that does exactly this. It enforces my structure of working. If you are interested in this, basically I know where every file lives by having this skill. So every time I feed it to the AI, it keeps the format, keeps the architecture that I use. And it's essentially just good because the project stays mine. It's not an unmaintainable black box, right? So I can still go in there and change things in code if I want to. There should be a QR code for this. Maybe if you guys want to take a look, I did make it available. If there you go, QR code is right there. If you can't scan it, feel free to message me later on. I can send it to you as well. But if you want to read it, if you're interested, scan the QR code somewhere around here. I don't know where. Um, give you a few seconds. There you go. And look at the cat. That is a cute little cat. But okay, that was enough time. I think you've scanned it. You can also look on YouTube if you haven't scanned it. But moving on, this one, this one might make some people mad. I am sorry in advance. In advance, yeah, this is my name for it, and it is a pun on object-oriented programming. Don't kill me for it. I swear, I don't mean to hurt you. As far as I know, there is no established name for exactly this. The closest idea in the field are like grounding or maybe like context engineering, but they don't quite capture the specific move that I'm about to show you. Um, so essentially, kind of a story time. When I first started using I wanted to make it everything, right? I wanted the AI to make the entire game. I would go like, AI, make me steal a brain rot, make no mistakes, make me rich, monetize it, and get me a yacht. But that doesn't work, right? The AI would build it would build UI that looked kind of okay. It would build in-game objects that looked absolutely awful. The code looked, and it would like stitch together some kind of Frankenstein, basically. And what actually worked for me was using the extra time I had that I wasn't spending programming, since the AI could program for me, and laying down actual objects and references for what I wanted. And then I would point at them in my prompt, or I would reference those objects in my prompt. So, for example, instead of saying, build me 6 bases like Stuart Brainrot in a workspace, and letting the AI just like go wild, hallucinate, do anything that it wants, I would go into the workspace, I would place 6 parts, okay, manually, in the way that I wanted, in the size that I wanted, in the way that I had envisioned in my head. And after I placed them, I would use them in my prompt, right? So I would say, like, make me 6 plots with the base of each plot being one of the 6 parts in workspace plots folder, right? So then it would make me 6 plots, but exactly on those parts that I placed and in those dimensions that I placed. And because the AI can read Studio through MCP, it can see exactly where those parts are and how big they are. And the result is dramatically better. And this extends even better for UI. I saw Coder Z briefly mentioning this on his workshop as well. But like, if you wireframe your UI or the way that you want it to be organized or the way you want it to be structured, and use those references for the AI in your prompt, it works a lot better than just asking the AI to design an entire interface for you and hoping it comes out the way you imagine, right? So instead of like, make me an inventory menu, you can assemble it with simple frames. And then you can just be like, I've added a frame called inventory to start a GUI. Inside of it is another frame called template. And there's a label called title, and there's an image label called icon. You can plug the item's name and icon into those respectively. And there you go. By building out those objects and referencing them like this, you are far more likely to land on what you actually wanted or what you actually had in your head in the first place. So the principle in one line is simple. Don't describe what you want in words when you can point at it in the world. Okay? So with those 3 things and everything we've talked about today, abstraction has reached the point of where, like, the point where you can just write where you want, right? You can just write what you want and it does it. And with these few simple tools that I've showed you, plugins, skills, and the object-oriented prompting, you can turn your projects into real, maintainable projects and faster as well. Essentially, a big part of this is like sometimes you have ideas, right? And essentially, before we had these tools, you had to spend a lot of time and commit a lot of time into building out those ideas and making sure they work. Nowadays, you don't have to do that anymore. You know, you can have an idea of a game and pull up Claude and build out like an MVP for it. And so instead of spending like 2 weeks into an idea and finding out eventually that it's not good, it's not fun, you can spend just like a day on it and you can already validate your core loop, validate your game design, and make sure that like, okay, I like this. Let me keep building on this, and eventually even hire a real developer to work and fix the AI code or like to maintain this and further grow it. But essentially, you can just test out ideas and do things a lot faster. So you waste less time and you feel less committed as well. Because like sometimes when you have an idea, okay, I feel like I'm not the only person who's been through this before. You have an idea and you think it's so awesome, and then you spend like a month building it, and then you send it to your friends, and they're like, this is the worst thing I've ever played. And you like you feel so offended because like, what do you mean? I thought this was such a cool idea and I just spent a month building it and you're telling me it sucks. I don't want to listen to you. I'm gonna keep building it. And it's inevitably like it might do good, don't get me wrong, but there's a high chance that it's gonna fail. But the fact that you spent so much time on it is gonna blind you and it's gonna make you want to keep doing it even if it doesn't work. Right? Sunk cost fallacy, if you've ever heard of it. But yeah, we can pull up prototypes a lot faster and spend a lot less time is essentially what I'm saying. But trivia time, once again, after all this yapping, you are welcome to answer this question right here. Live challenge. This one is about who something something. It's asking a name, I think. Do you remember the name of the person I talked about a few slides before? Yeah. If you were paying attention, you can answer. You get an item. Are you gonna get the item? I don't know. That's up to you. I did my job. You do your job. You scan the QR code and answer. There's only four, you know. Even if you don't know, it's only like a 25% chance, so you might just guess. Just open it and guess. Maybe luck is in your side today, you know. Are you answering? You better be answering. If you don't know the answer, you can always ask in chat and hope that someone is nice enough to tell you. But I can't guarantee that though. Okay, was that enough? Yep, we are good to go. And then finally, we have arrived at the live demo. Essentially, I spent a lot of time yapping here and telling you about all this. So, as I said, I'm not going to be able to go too deep into a live demo. I'm not going to be able to make such specific show you too much of like the actual workflow. I'm just going to do a simple prompt here so we can make the same system that we made before. As I said, Coder Z's workshop, absolutely awesome. His live demo is like pretty much his entire workshop is a live demo, so you can look a lot more in depth into like how he works. So let me stop sharing this and share my screen real quick so you can look at Studio. We are going to click right here and we're going to share the entire screen. Yes, I'm looking up because my monitor is up there. And you can see this. Okay, so essentially what we've done here is we have created an empty place. We have opened a Claude code session here, which is just, if you don't know how to do it, you make a folder. Let me open it for you actually. You make a folder, you can just go there, right click, new terminal, Claude. And there you go. Your Claude is going to open on this terminal. There you have it. Imagine if it didn't open. That would have been so funny. Um, but anyway, let me make it a bit bigger so you can read. As you can already see here, it has some logs, some memory of what I did before in this folder, which is what I was talking to you about with Claude Mem. You can see here that it tells me the reduction from reuse that it's saving me in context economics. So it shows me everything that I made before in this folder, essentially just like play testing this live demo to make sure nothing goes wrong. But we're gonna use some object-oriented prompting, as I said. So we're gonna place a part here. We're gonna scale it up. We're gonna do essentially the same setup that I talked to you about earlier. We're gonna call this one part 1, duplicate it, pull it out here, call it part 2, make sure they are both anchored, make sure they have can collide off, and let's change your transparency a little bit. And then we're gonna make another part, and we can call it the player plot. Let me pull it here. We can scale it up, scale it up. There you go. Anchor it as well. And we can call this one the player plot. Yeah, that's all. And then we're gonna make a string GUI, and we're gonna add a text label to that string GUI. Remove the background transparency, set the anchor point to be 0, 1, so it sits right there, and set the position to be 0, 1 as well, so it sits at the bottom right there. We are going to set it to be scaled. We're going to change the text to like $0, and then we can change the text color to be like green, so it's money. And we change the name of this text label to balance, because this is where we're going to put the player balance. And now we just type. So we're going to type, make me a system where when the player joins the game, it spawns clones of the player's character on part 1 and moves them towards part 2. You can see that I have caveman on as well, by the way, if you look down there. Add proximity prompts to the clones of the character. If the proximity prompt is pressed, move the clone towards the player plot part. If the prompt is not pressed, delete the clone once it reaches part 2. Once the clone reaches the player's base, make it produce money every second for the player. Make it so claiming clones costs money, and display the player's balance on stream GUI balance. There you go. We have made our slightly big prompt here, but it can be a lot bigger, trust me. Now the AI is going to think, it is nesting, it is thinking, it's going to read what I saved before so it can work faster, because last time, essentially, I thought about using superpowers for this, which is the plugin that I showed you, but when I use it for this, it's like using a big, huge, like space laser to kill a little ant on the ground. You know, it is such a big, powerful tool, and it takes a long time. Okay, so I totally encourage you to use it for systems and features that you plan on maintaining for the long term. But for a specific like live demo like this, it would just take too long and it's not worth using. But for anything else that you're actually going to be using, I highly encourage you to use it. And so there we have it. Let's see if it's going to work, or if it's just going to spawn 1. There you go. Claim. Oh my God, it moves to my base. Is it going to make me money, or is it not going to make me money? Oh yeah, it added another label actually. Look at that. That is my balance. That is so sad. I should scream at it. But the label is there, even though it didn't use that one. As you can see, you can buy them, and they are making me money. And if they don't get bought, they disappear. I'm really sad that I didn't use my. Why didn't you use my balance deck label in Stream GUI? Use it, please. Let's see what it's gonna say about that. Uh huh. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, work for me. Thank you. Now let's see if it uses it. There you go. W is in chat, guys. W is in chat. Now it's using it. Let's buy one. Look at that. The money went down. So there you have it. We've made the exact same system that we made last year, but I didn't have to explain what a variable or a function or like anything is to you. We just prompted it. Um, and with that, we have reached. I'm looking at my TV again. This one here is what I want to share. Yep. And we are just gonna go one more. There you go. That was it. If anyone has any questions, now is the time to send them in the QR code that you should see somewhere on the screen. And someone is going to appear and ask them to me right now. Oh, look at her. Hello.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Glib. Thank you for this amazing workshop. And it's time for Q&A. So please send all questions through this QR code that is popping right here in the screen. And we're going to start. We already have a few questions. So I'm going to
Oh
start.
God.
Have time.
Okay.
Um, First, from Kokushi Bowl, am I able to fully produce a game with an AI plugin? What is the best way to learn Lua?
Okay. That is a good. Those are two good questions. First question: are you able to produce a game entirely with AI? You asked with an AI plugin. Yeah, you were able to produce a game with AI. Sorry, using plugins. Yeah. Um, if you look at the like Roblox front page, it's not that hard to notice which ones are made with AI or not. A lot of people are using AI for the backend for more established games. But yes, you are able to make a game entirely using AI nowadays. I can't guarantee that in all fields it's going to be easy because like for example, I have found that AI is a lot more limited when it comes to building out maps, for example, or like making good UI. It's good at coding because people are not looking at coding. Even if it's not like super good at coding, it doesn't matter as long as it's working. You know, people are not going to judge it. But your map is going to be judged. Your UI is going to be judged. So that tends to be a little harder to make, but it's not impossible. If you look at my previous creations, I made a game like it's on my web page. I made it in 6 hours. It was like all AI. I just had an idea and I was like, okay, how far can I take it? And it went all the way from idea to the finish line. So awesome. I didn't have to code it. I um, verified that the idea worked. Indeed, you can go take a look at that. So yes, it is totally viable um, right now in the current state of the world that we live in. Second question: what was the question? What is the easiest way to learn Lua?
Yes, exactly.
What is the easiest way to learn Lua? This is something. This is a piece of advice that was not made up by me, but I've seen someone else saying it, and I feel like it is really smart and creative. Essentially, the best way you're going to learn anything is by doing it, right? But I find that a lot of people who are given this piece of advice come up to me and be like and go like, okay, but I don't know what I should do. Like I have no ideas. What am I going to build? And what I always tell people is that you should start by making a door. Make a working door that you click and it opens and closes. Did you manage to do that? Okay, now let's upgrade that door. Let's add a key code to that door. So you have to type in some specific numbers on some parts to unlock the door. So now the door has a key code lock. But you managed to do that. That's really cool. Now, what if the door floats and explodes when you open it with the key code? Like, what if the door turns into another door? And so essentially, you are just building on top of that very simple idea, and you are without even realizing, you're learning more and more complex cases. Eventually, you can make the door save its state. I don't know. And by doing that, you're like using data stores. So if you have no idea, make a door. See how cool of a door you can get to. Essentially, like I want to see your ideas. Like Can you make like a door that ends up being a spaceship with an entire game behind it? I don't know. And that's what's cool about it. You are the one having the ideas, and you have a path to follow with them, essentially. So hopefully that works. Send me your doors, guys. I really want to see them.
Amazing, great answer. Okay, moving to the next one from Dalen0000. As
Mhm.
AI becomes better at writing code, what do you think will be the most valuable skill that human programmers should focus on developing?
Okay, that is something that like I think I've been thinking about this one like constantly for the past days, and it's something that's really hard, and I feel like no one really has an answer yet. Because the thing is, a lot of the knowledge necessary to steer the AI in the direction that you want, I have because I've been working without the AI for so many years before it was actually a thing and it was actually viable to work. So nowadays, I feel like the knowledge that you're meant to have is like what instances exist in Roblox, what objects can you use, what APIs exist that you can plug into the AI. And I only gathered that knowledge because I built without it. So like, should people still be building without it to gather that knowledge? Are we eventually gonna have learning resources that go around like that specific knowledge or those specific knowledge points instead of directly just like programming and running into those issues and eventually learning how to solve them? I don't know. So for now, of course, I would encourage you to go and build out without AI. If I'm not saying you shouldn't use AI, but it just happens that a lot of the times when you are building with AI, you don't tend to really look at what it's doing or like what APIs or what objects it's using. So you're not going to learn if you don't look, essentially. So you need to have experience. You need to build out your own experience using the APIs, using the instances that Roblox has in order to, for example, correct your AI when it's making a mistake and you don't know. Like, you can't correct a mistake if you don't know how to do it right. For example, I've had an instance where I had an object that was being tweened, and I said like, in between this tween, this like object size should be cut in half. And what it did was it played the tween and then it set the size to half while the tween was being played. And that didn't work. Why did it not work? Because when you play a tween on a part, you can't just resize it and the tween is going to continue from the size after the resize. No, the tween is just going to keep going and it's going to ignore your resize. And the AI didn't know that, but I knew that, so I could tell it to fix that. So that's essentially the experience that you get from building yourself. I
Amazing.
know that
Yeah,
helps. Hopefully,
no,
you'll get
that's
something out of that.
great advice, very important.
Yep.
Another question coming from Marcos Merlo 12. When working on larger Roblox projects with many services and scripts, how do you prevent the AI agent from getting overwhelmed or exceeding its context window when using MCP tools like Caveman, Superpowers, or CloudMem?
Okay, yeah. I think a good way to start is that like by using those tools in the first place, you should teach your AI to keep things maintainable, right? As I said, if you have a services folder, for example, and your AI is correctly identifying when a new service should be created, or if you are explicitly telling it, okay, this should be a new service, it's not going to get overwhelmed because it's going to separate things, right? It's not going to read all of the services in your game just to build out one service. So essentially, you need to make sure that your AI knows that it should separate things, it should abstract things as much as possible, and it shouldn't make one big long script for the entirety of your game. It should follow architecture rules. It should follow however you want your project to work, and it should follow that because it's going to break down things into maintainable and like um, it's not going to make super huge long changes or super huge long scripts if you don't let it, essentially. So you have to make sure that the code stays maintainable, that it breaks down things when it needs to break down things. um and yeah, it's just a matter of not thinking that your AI is going to build out an incredibly well structured game out of a single prompt. You have to watch what it's doing. You have to make sure it's breaking down things when they need to be broken down. That's what I can give you right now.
Great. And there's a lot of questions related to your background. People are super interested in your
Oh,
background.
nice.
So we have one here from Eduardo 867857. How many years have you been working on Roblox games? And what are the best moments from doing so?
Okay. I have been making games on Roblox since 2020. So it's been like 6 years now. There are a lot more experienced people than me on the platform, but I'm like in between there. It's been 6 years. It's been a while. The coolest moments, I would say the first coolest moment was when I released a game and it got like thousands of players, and it was like so chaotic because everyone was like joining the Discord and being like, "Guys, my data isn't saving," and we're like, "Oh no, that's an issue. We gotta fix that." Oopsies. So that was really chaotic, but it was really fun. Second biggest moment, I think, and this goes back to being free advertisement for the Inspired Challenge, but going to RDC, guys, Roblox Developer Conference. It is so cool. It was like life changing for me. I'm not exaggerating this. Like, if you are able to participate in the Inspire Challenge, the prize, like being able to fly all the way to Roblox HQ and meet other developers, like the coolest part about it is just going there and everyone there is a Roblox dev. Everyone there is thinking about the same things. Everyone there is creating. And that was like top experiences of my life for me. So I definitely encourage you to participate in the Inspire Challenge
Really exciting. Yeah, coming up very soon, next week.
very
So
soon.
we still have time to. And going to our last, unfortunately, question. From Gamer Leaf 124. Throughout your career, which AI tool would you say is the most reliable that does not require mostly subscriptions? Example plus.
Okay, that does not require subscriptions. Well, I'm I'm honestly not sure because like so essentially when I started using AIs, I use the non-subscription ones, but I never use them for work. By the time I started using them for work, I figured it would be worth to invest at least like $20 into the basic cloud subscription. What I can tell you is that this is pure like hearsay, but I have heard good things about OpenClaw. I have heard good things about like people using Gemini, I think, which has a free plan. I'm unsure, honestly, if you can use Gemini as like I use Claude Code, which is like you're able to put plugins in it, you're able to feed skills into it. I'm not sure which ones. I've heard good things about Cursor as well, and I believe they have a free tier subscription or at least like a trial because I've used Cursor in the past as well. But essentially, if you have a tool that you can feed skills into, if you have a tool that you can have plugins on, and if you have a tool that is able to work with Roho or like FileSync, it's going to work fine either way. There are many, many free options available out there.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Glib, once again. It was amazing. Thanks, everyone, for attending Inspire 2026. And we're wrapping up right now. I hope you all had a great time because I did personally. This hour was very precious. So stay tuned for the next workshop coming up at 2 p.m. Pacific time about Dynamic Ads 101 from Blender to Roblox. Thank you all and see you next time.
See you all. Thank you for coming, and feel free to like message me if you have any questions as well. I'm always available. I'm always out there. And see you at RDC if you win the Inspire Challenge. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.